So, chapter one, a couple things. Each chapter, you're going to see these learning outcomes as we go through. I'm just going to whip past those. Those are benchmarks for you for new sections in the chapter, but not necessarily something that I'll go over during your PowerPoint presentation. Also, when we're going through that PowerPoints, I may just like breeze over sections because I don't necessarily need to speak through them, but they're there. There's an outline provided for you. You can read through them, and you'll also be reading them in your textbook, so you can look through them and review them that way. But it's not really necessary for me to go over them again for you. This is your textbook, 9th edition of Zoology by Miller and Harley. There are 8 older editions out there. It's quite feasible for you to pick up one of the older editions. I wouldn't go too old. Mostly what's going to be different about it will be some of the taxonomic classifications. You'll be able to get the updated stuff from the PowerPoints. But for the most part, it should still be good. So if you can get a slightly older edition for cheaper, I'd say go for it. Okay, chapter 1. Zoology. Study of animals. Incidentally, everything that we're going to do here is going to be based on evolution. It's the foundation of everything we understand to be true in our world as scientists. It has been demonstrated over and over again since it was first proposed in 1859. It is not required in this course that you believe in evolution. It is, however, required that you learn about it. Because evolution is a stepwise process, you'll find also that the taxonomy is hierarchical. And although we do end up with some glitches like marsupiality, where it evolves twice over the course of evolution, for the most part, you'll see a lot of common traits in organisms tied together because they had a common ancestor. Okay, so zoology, study of animals. Most zoologies specialize and have subdisciplines, such as those that you see here. Anatomy, ecology, which is one of my specializations. I'm also an animal behaviorist, which is even falls within ecology. You'll want to look through those. Also, specializations within zoology can be categorized by taxonomic categories, like entomology, which is study of insects. Mammalogy is pretty obvious. Ornithology is more commonly heard term. That's the study of birds. Organic evolution. The reason that we put organic in front of evolution is because evolution is also used in common language just to mean if things evolve, they change. But here, organic evolution is referring to simple biological evolution and infers that the genetic makeup of populations change in organisms over time. This evolutionary change explains how the diversity of animals, both structurally and functionally, arose over time. And it also explains the relationships that animals that are currently represented in within the kingdom of animals now. Evolutionary processes help us to explain now structure and function, such as there is a group of fish called the cichlids, which is an incredibly diverse group of fish. They are African. This particular species of cichlids have evolved to eat the scales off of other fish, but in order to eat the scales off of a fish, your mouth actually has to be curved to the side so that you can kind of swim up alongside the fish and steal the scales. So your mouth can either be curved one way or the other way, to the left or to the right, but not both. So within this species, some fish have their mouths curved to the right, and some fish have their mouths curved to the left. This makes it more difficult for the fish, which are prey, to be wary of an attack, because they never know if they're going to get attacked from the left or the right. If groups of individuals are more closely related, then they share more DNA in common, as you would expect, just like you share more DNA with a sibling than you do a cousin. Relationships among cichlid fish in Africa are explained both by geography and geological history in Eastern Africa. So the cichlid populations in Africa have been traced back actually 200,000 years. The original populations were here in this tiny little lake here, and also in this larger lake in the middle. And from there, fish populations have spread. Animal classifications and relationships are hierarchical. So, and that demonstrates relatedness. We now classify organisms according to this relatedness. We use what's called a binomial nomenclature, which was originally established by Carl von Linné, or actually he's better known as Linnaeus. That's actually his name Latinized, but it's actually the only way I ever heard it until I picked up this textbook. He was a botanist by training, and most of what he classified were plants, and he did so based on morphological structures. So he looked really at just what their parts looked like and not much else, but he was incredibly accurate in doing this. So he gave each species a two-word identity. That would be a genus and a species name. So within any genus, you're going to have multiple species, but only one species has a unique genus and species name. If you look at the large hierarchy, you will find a domain name, of which there are 3 possible, a kingdom, of which there are 5, a phylum. So now here in this representation we have split, and the possibility here is an arthropod or a chordate. We are chordates. Arthropods, in this case, you're going to end up with an insect. A class, which hexapods are insects. Osteichthyes are bony fish, and mammalians are, of course, mammals. Orders. As we're going down this list to the right, you're getting more specific in your order of classification. So dipterans are the flies. Percheriforms, within fish. Primates are primates. Muscids are houseflies. We have tabon flies, which I'm not even going to go there because most people don't know that many flies. So dipterans, flies. Then we have our genus and species. So Musca domestica, that's a housefly. You're going off here, off this chute with another fly. We're going to end up down here with a cichlid fish, and down here with Homo sapiens, which are, of course, humans. There are other species within the Homo genus, like Homo erectus, but they're extinct. Ecology. We're going doesn't talk a lot more specifically about ecology, but in general, it's the study of relationships between organisms and their environment. And without understanding that, we end up with very significant and detrimental consequences. For example, the Nile perch was introduced into Lake Victoria, which is a very large lake in Africa, and it resulted in the extinction of many species of cichlid fish. The Nile perch was introduced to improve fishing, but instead led to the extinction of many. We will also be very generally looking at how global overpopulation has been a huge impact and has actually led essentially to most, if not all, of our environmental issues, and because of the stress it places on all resources, such as those that have led to deforestation, water shortages, and hence extinction of species, climate change, and if there are possible solutions to discuss.